All right, everybody, welcome back to the Community Fitness Podcast. We are here on episode number 72, and we are joined once again, one of the only times we've ever asked anybody to come back on the show, by Chris Borda, longevity expert Chris Borda, and Results Fitness University Business Owner of the Year. It's the current champ. So, Chris, thanks for joining us on the show again. Not many people know this, but this is actually our fourth time because of technology.
Yeah, because of technology. Well, I appreciate you having me back on again. I'm glad that, I was of value to your clients, and I hope whatever information I spew out today will be just as valuable.
Yeah. We had a really good talk the first time. I think it was about a year ago. We did the first conference call or the first podcast episode together. And upon airing that episode, we had numerous clients come up to us and ask us so many questions. And there was stuff I'm like, man, these are questions for Chris. Like, I'll let him know. And we kind of got some stuff rolling that way. And we always talked about getting back on another episode, and here we are. So we're talking with longevity expert Chris Borda. We're going to go over some of the stuff that we covered last time. We're going to answer some questions that we've had from some of our members. We're going to see what's going on in Chris's life in general, what he's training for, anything new in the longevity side, and then we're going to cover the 9 hallmarks of aging. Does that sound good, Chris?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
All right. Cool, man. Well, let's just jump ship, and we'll go right into you. What's been going on in your life? What's kind of new? What's been fun? You were crowned Business Owner of the Year. What was it was it November? November?
October, November. I forget which month it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was pretty cool because you guys might not know this or not, but that's the third time I've been up for the award as far as like in the finalist. Mm-hmm. And I thought I needed to shake it up a little bit this time, so I submitted a video instead of a little essay, and then I kind of came out and just made a little more of a play out of it than just reading off of some bullet points. And I think it just grabbed everybody's attention. I'm not saying that I did anything more than anybody else did, but I think that was a little trick.
Yeah, man. Came out swinging.
I did come out swinging.
Yeah, I like it. Rightfully so. Like, totally cool to see that part of it. I didn't know that was your third time, so that was pretty cool. Since you were up there and you've been honored with that award, and obviously it's well deserved. And I think a lot of that also is to do with your ability to stay in business. You've been doing this for 22 years. You've had a gym for 22 years, which, like, kudos to you. I mean, that's a huge accolade in itself. And also to be up there and standing in front of all of us and continuing to be able to bring it at that level for that long. And now you're working on this longevity stuff. You're the expert in it, in my mind. Come to you with all the answers. So let's kind of dive in a little bit more about that in a moment. But first, what's going on in your training life? What are you training for?
My personal training life? I shifted about a little over a year ago. I never even thought about this, but I was always very fast as a kid. Way back in '79, I could run a 4.65 40, which was pretty quick back then. They didn't have this kind of training that they have now. And I came upon the Master Olympics. It's Olympics for old people. And I said, I want to give this a shot. And actually, I messed up the date, and I thought I couldn't compete last year. And actually, I could have, but it probably was a good thing that I didn't, because I had done really no specific training for it. So since last summer, I have gone after it a little bit and tried to very specific in my training and what I try to accomplish. And I hope to be able to be victorious in the 50-meter dash and the 100-meter dash. Cool. 50 meters, the guy last year won 50 meters in 7.13 seconds, which is quick. And then, which is amazing to me, is in the 100-meter dash, they got faster. They were accelerating because they ran it in a little over 13 seconds. Yeah. I know when I get to about 70 meters, my heart is ready to come out of my chest. So I don't know how well I'm going to do at 100 meters, but I'm certainly going to give it a shot. It's sometime in May, the second, third weekend in May.
Second and third week in May. Okay, so we got a few months yet. Yeah, super cool. Pretty fascinating, pretty cool just to be able to talk to you about it. Somebody who, has been doing this, running the business for 22 years, been basically active and training in some shape or form for a majority of his life. And now you're giving some purpose, you're giving some meaning to like what you're able to do and still able to do. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it helps you train when you have some specific goals like that. rather than just going to gym and, trying to keep your weight down and things like that. So I always have little goals like that. Just a little bit more, taking on a little bit more than I normally do, but I'm going to give it a shot. All I can do is lose, right?
Yeah.
I'm not inviting families and friends, so whatever happens, happens.
All right.
I can go to the store and buy a medal. It's come home, they would never know.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Cool. Well, that's super awesome. We're definitely going to be rooting for you and kind of paying attention to you along the way. Obviously, if you guys watching this from the Unity Fitness side of things, if you guys haven't followed him yet, follow Chris. He's on Instagram. Follow Y.E.S Fitness. They're on Facebook and Instagram. And make sure you pay attention to all that stuff that they're doing over there in Connecticut. Where at in Connecticut?
I'm in Burlington, Connecticut. It's kind of like in the center of the state.
There we go. So get to see what they're doing, all the good things they're doing over there. Let's jump into the longevity stuff. So where are you kind of at right now? We're a year after what we originally talked about. That you've got a year more of information and research and that you can share with us. Where are you kind of at right now, and what's kind of new in the longevity side of things, if there is any like new and upcoming things right now?
The newest thing that I have that I really haven't had time to really check out too much. I've heard a couple of podcasts on it, and I really haven't had a chance to dig into it too much. I'm trying to write a book, which that is a huge project, much larger than I thought it would be, but especially I'm not a writer. But anyway,
what's the book on?
Book's on longevity.
Yeah.
It's specific. Right now, the title is The Expert's Guide to Strength Training for Longevity. So it would be a real big emphasis on longevity and strength training, because it's one thing to just live longer, but we want to be able to live longer and be able to enjoy it. We want to be able to be active. We want to be able to, carry our grandchildren. We want to be able to go on those hikes, maybe go skiing, whatever it is. So, strength training is such a key to that. And I think people are afraid to strength train correctly. They think all they need to do is walk. And honestly, walking is great for you. Don't say don't walk, but there's so much more to it than just walking. And the benefits you get from strength training and strength training correctly, it's all the 9 hallmarks of aging that we're going to talk about in a little while. So that's the name of the book. It will have exercises in it. It'll have some programming in it. It'll explain exactly what goes on in the body and how exercise helps, and strength training specifically helps with that process.
Super cool.
It's going to be pretty cool. I'm going to have a kind of most of the chapters will be done for the mastermind in March.
Yeah.
And I purposely say that because that will force me to get it done.
I was
throw it out there, right? Accountability. So I better show up with something in my hand.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing with him. Like, that's a deadline. It's accountability. That's smart.
Yeah. You don't want to walk in that door and having said something like that to Alan Cosgrove and not have it in your hand. No way. No way. So I will have something in my hand. I won't be in hand, but it'll be on a desk for sure. But
cool.
The thing that was really cool that I was listening to was, I know we've heard many times about how ice bath and cold showers, and that will turn on a pathway to slow the aging process. And quite honestly, I don't really care for cold showers, and I don't want to jump in an ice bath. So maybe I'll die a little bit younger. But this research was based on saunas, infrared saunas. And what they're looking at is, what I believe they're looking at, or I haven't looked into it closely enough yet, is that the same type of inflammation that occurs with exercise, and you get warmed up like that, occurs when you're sitting in the sauna. And there's places like, I'm pretty sure, like Switzerland, where they do it all the time. On a daily basis, they sit in a sauna for however long it is. And they're finding that it's getting the same type of benefits that you would get if you go out and exercise, which is very cool, because I like to sit in a sauna.
Yeah, I mean, you get the same type of benefits that are from it. And you could do work when you're sitting in the sauna too, but
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost get one for at home. There's a ton of different ways you can do that.
There's home models, and that's not to say you shouldn't be exercising, because there's so many other things that happen when you exercise, especially strength training.
Right.
But I think that's a neat way to, hey, you got a few minutes, you got a half an hour, go there and work, maybe meditate.
Absolutely.
Stress a little bit, because that's always something that's going on in our lives. So I think it's really great. I haven't looked into the cost of a sauna at home. but I am definitely going to do that. If I think the research is worthy of it, I'm going to go out there and get myself a sauna, because I love to sit in heat like that, and I hate jumping in cold baths.
Absolutely. And that's the other part of it. Like, that could be something, even a person who, so I feel like I get overheated easily. I get hot easily. I sweat easily.
Yeah.
I would much rather do that than even jump in that cold bath or ice bath, which I've done several times before, for not the longevity purpose, but for the purpose of like inflammation stuff and after
Right. Yeah.
that stuff when I was at school at UWL. But be able to do that, like, I'm in. You know, you bring a book in there.
I'm in for that. I'm not in for jumping into cold.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. And maybe the next time we get on, I can talk more about it. I just haven't had enough time to research it as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
Because, studies are easy. Studies are hard to read. You need to, really understand what you're looking at when you're looking at studies. So.
Yeah, there's an art to reading research, and to be able to do it maybe in an unbiased, unfiltered way, because we all are going to read it in our own way, but to also know how the research was done and understand the way it was done and how everything was ran. There's a lot to it where it can be extrapolated pretty easily from a media standpoint, just to be able to be pushed around and shared, and it kind of skews everything.
The media can make a real mess of things.
Yeah.
Real mess of things. So, yeah. So I'm going to take a look at that.
Cool. Cool.
I'll let you guys know.
Anybody that you're following in particular, like in the industry, like longevity, like who are you like waiting to see when they put out the next stuff?
The main person that I follow is Dr. David Sinclair. He has a lab in Harvard, and he is a geneticist. And I believe it's the geneticists that are really knowing and understanding what's going on in the body, all down to the DNA. And when we get through the hallmarks of aging and things like that, you'll know a little bit more about it. But that's really what I look at. There's some people like Dave Asprey that does I follow stuff, I read his stuff. He does a whole lot of stuff on anti-aging and longevity, but there's a lot of crazy stuff. And I don't think it's things that, the average person is going to do. Like, they're not going to do infrared treatment on their brains and the mitochondria in their brain, or some of the other crazy stuff that he does, and all the supplements that he takes and things like that. But you got to keep it kind of simple. And I think that not only does Dr. Sinclair make it simple, but I think he's on the right track of what's going on in our body. So that's kind of the stuff that I take a look at.
Perfect. And for those of you that don't know, Dave Asprey is what would you say? He's the founder of the Bulletproof Diet?
Bulletproof, correct.
Yeah, and he's got a podcast out there. He's got books out there. He's got stores out there with coffee and supplements and all that other stuff. So you can check him out if you're a little bit more interested in learning about him. He is he would be, like you said, kind of the crazy stuff. He's kind of on that extreme side of things, but super intelligent. Touch base. Just really quick note. We talked a lot about this before we go into the 9 hallmarks of aging. We talked a lot about this the first time, and how exercise, like not the exercise in general and strength training in general, how it can accelerate the process of all things longevity, and how it helps with all things longevity. Like, it's another type of thing, a benefit that we're finding exercise and strength training can do. And we already think it does almost everything. It's one of those things that can help with everything, but specifically talk about how it helps with longevity.
Okay, so in my eyes, exercise and strength training specifically is like medicine. I mean, it helps the body in so many ways other than just longevity, as we know, and the things that it can do. Mm-hmm. But specifically, when you strength train, there's been studies now that shows all the way at the DNA level, without getting too specific, all the way down into the DNA, and it helps repair the DNA. And when we repair the DNA, it will be able to tell our bodies what to do correctly. It will repair the DNA. It will tell the body, or it will tell the DNA how to replicate correctly. So this is the power of strength training. Before, they thought it was only aerobics, but it's not. They see now that it's in strength training as well. So that spike of antioxidant enzymes and the anti-inflammatory that occurs when we do strength training. It helps the small oxidative stress that it does. It just helps those pathways to be able to offset the aging and actually reverse the aging process.
Super cool. Super cool. Pretty powerful stuff, man. We keep hearing more and more about strength training and exercise, but when they do good research, we get good stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I would say that if a person I only had 2 days a week to work out,
mm-hmm.
that I would have you do strength training over anything else. Because if you strength train correctly, you are going to improve your aerobic capacity.
Right.
Whereas if you do cardiovascular work, you're not going to improve your strength. You're not going to improve, your muscle density or anything like that. Yes, you'll improve your mitochondria. You get more aerobically fit. But when you do strength training correctly, you get the cardio component that you don't get when you only do cardio. So if you got 2 hours a week, if you got twice a week to exercise, that's the thing to do.
And what's funny is we say the same thing. That same response is the same answer we give to people who are looking for fat loss. And
exactly.
Usually, if they have 2 hours a week for fat loss, they're usually thinking like, I got to bust my butt on a cardio or something. We're like, no, if you got 2 hours a week, like get strength training because you get all the benefits of cardio plus everything else.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. Speaking of pretty cool stuff, the 9 hallmarks of aging. I was, when we talked about this the other day, I like my 3/4 of my notes are from this. and it's kind of like a time where I think you and we can nerd out, and I loved it. The information. Yeah. This is kind of like my background. This is what I went to school for stuff. Mm-hmm. So let's go over those nine hallmarks of aging, and then we'll be able to answer questions better of our BCAAs. You said last time when we talked that are basically detrimental to longevity, as well as red meat. But we need to understand this information to understand why we're in that boat and why we're finding that information out about BCAAs and red meat.
Right. And I'm going to try to make it as simple for people to understand as possible without nerding out too much. We can nerd out when we get out there to the mastermind in March. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent the 4 major diseases: heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. I mean, that's what we're trying to effectively not happen to our bodies, right? So the first of the 9 hallmarks of aging is genome or genetic instability. So the genes in our body becomes unstable. So if we want to look at it like this, the genome is like a compact disc. When a compact disc gets a scratch in it, it no longer, or a CD no longer will give the music like it's supposed to give, right? So when you get that scratch in a DNA, the DNA doesn't get the correct information on how to replicate correctly. So thereby, it's not going to make the correct gene again. It's not going to make the correct DNA. It's not going to make the correct cells again. Thus, things become a mess, right? So just like with a compact disc, if you didn't know this, you can polish a compact disc with toothpaste, and that will get rid of it, get rid of the scratch, and you'll regain the information. So what Dr. Sinclair and his colleagues have found out is that there are ways to fix the genome again, fix that DNA, so when it does replicate, it replicates correctly rather than replicating the wrong way. And exercise, of course, is one of the best ways to help the process along being able to do that.
Cool. Super cool. Powerful.
So
another reason.
If your DNA is not replicating correctly, it could replicate into cancer. It could replicate into another disease. So, I mean, that's so important. I mean, it's not much more important than that, but we'll see through the other 8 that there's other things that are really important.
Yeah. So
that's number 1. Number 2 is telomere attrition. So when you think of a telomere as the aglet on the end of your shoelace, and it protects your shoelace so it doesn't fray. Well, on the end of your DNA, you have these telomeres. And as they decay, the cell dies. So when we were conceived, a telomere is about 15,000 base pairs. Once we're born, we're already down to 10,000 base pairs. And then every year, you lose about 50 to 100 base pairs on the length of your telomere. Till it gets to about 5,000 base pairs, and then a telomere will die. It will senesce and die. So there's things that we can do in our lifestyles, nutrition, exercise, stress, that can slow the process of losing that aglet, the shortening of the telomere. And with exercise, you can actually re-lengthen that telomere some with the production of telomerase in your system. So that is one of the hallmarks of aging right there, telomere attrition.
And that's a lot of lifestyle stuff there too, right? Like a lot of our lifestyle choices.
Lifestyle. Stress is big with telomere length. And it's not stress like, I got to go to work, I got to perform, that kind of stress. It's the stress that we just muddle over and over again, and we just let it just weigh on us all the time. Or like caregivers are big examples, bad examples. You don't be a caregiver, your telomere length is shortening much faster than normal people. But exercise, nutrition, sleep, hydration, de-stress, all those things can help slow, and with exercise actually re-lengthen the telomere length.
That's before we go into the third hallmark, that's an interesting thing you just said there about caregivers, because I would say about half of our population, our membership at Unity Fitness is what I would deem as an actual caregiver of some sort in their family. Some actually caregivers as like a career. And it's just part of me is just thinking now is an ironic thing, because a lot of them seem to be more stressed as they get older, because that's when they're kind of taking care of their parents, or they have more kids to take care of, when obviously the one thing that they want to be around for is their grandkids and their kids. They're potentially losing years of their life from the stress that they're building up from doing the thing that they actually are love to do because they're helping their family, but B, they're good at doing it. They've done it their whole life. Good at doing this, and it's the thing that could be killing them a little bit.
It is killing them. It is killing them. They need to really learn how to de-stress. They need to be able to separate that caregiving from the rest of their life, because if it's just weighing on them all the time, it's really doing damage to their body. More damage than they know.
Brutal, yeah. So even more so the facts of like getting the exercise in there for the anti-inflammatory stuff that feel good. But yeah, taking that moment to de-stress seriously, whatever it is, we have to figure out a way. We're actually doing that in our podcast this week, my live show. Since we're gonna move this one back a week, we're gonna do that on like de-stressing and actually finding out how it works for you and how to notice that it feels better. That's the episode. Interesting.
Nice, awesome, good stuff. Good stuff.
Use that nugget you just gave me there.
Yeah.
All right, we're on hallmark number 3. I'm going to try and say this. Epigenetic alterations. Did I get that right?
Perfect. Probably said it better than I can. Nice. Nice. So we talked a few minutes about the DNA and being able to replicate themselves. But the genome or the DNA tells the cells what to do and what not to do through enzymes and proteins and things like that. So if you think of this as your DNA as a grand piano, 30,000 keys, I should say, of keys on a piano. And if those keys are played improperly, as the DNA isn't replicating correctly, you start to tell the cells to do the wrong things. So a liver cell might be told what to do what a muscle cell is told to do. And a muscle cell might be told what a lung cell might be told what to do. So it just becomes a huge mess. So we need, through exercise, always a theme here, that helps the molecular pathways stay correct, so that the piano doesn't play the wrong keys at the wrong time. It tells the wrong cells what to do. I should say, tells the cells to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So it becomes like epigenetic noise. Like the piano is not talking the way it's supposed to talk. And when it's specifically what doesn't talk, and we're going to talk about sirtuins later. Sirtuins kind of protect the body. When it's not telling the sirtuins how to control the cell functions correctly and slow the aging process, it actually will increase the aging process. Or if it's not telling the cell correctly to die, like we're going to talk about a little while later, like it's supposed to, like senesce, it becomes a mess. So, This the third of the 9 things. Epigenetic alterations is a mess. Can become a mess.
Oof. And then again, it sounds like lifestyle and a little bit of exercise, like you said, a common theme.
Absolutely. Lifestyle, exercise, definitely exercise in that process.
Oof. All right. Let's keep this common theme going. Number 4.
Okay. Number 4, loss of proteostasis, which is the protein side of homeostasis in the body. So what is homeostasis? Homeostasis is the body trying to maintain a same level, a same, what's the word I want to use? Just to maintain a level, even keel, okay? Like
balance, or
like the water on a lake is just calm, right? So an example of this in your body would be when your body's temperature becomes too warm, right? What do? The body automatically starts to sweat. So it takes the water from the inside of your body, try to get that heat to the exterior of your body and have wind come by and cool you off. That's a system in your body trying to maintain the body's temperature of homeostasis. And in turn, if we get too cold, it restricts the blood cells or the blood vessels and tries to transfer and keep the heat internally. So that's what homeostasis is. So as it refers to proteins, if the body can't maintain the protein homeostasis of going in and out of the cells correctly, it increases the aging process. It accelerates the aging process, I should say.
Yeah. So being able to have that homeostasis at a constant level, or near constant with that, not go into this different changes all the time helps.
Right.
Is that something, again, is it exercise and lifestyle choice that helps keep that in there? What's in that one?
You know, I'm not exactly sure about that. I would guess that it is, since exercise helps everything else, but I don't know of any specific studies off the top of my head that do that, but maybe I should look that up. So next time I'll know.
Yeah, that'd be
specifically. You know, I definitely should. But it might also, when we talk a little bit about the deregulated nutrient sensing, like we're going to talk about right now, and there's proteins involved in this, the 4 major proteins associated with this, that, and I know exercise helps this, so I would imagine that it would help the loss of the homeostasis, because next we're going to talk about the deregulated nutrient sensing. So the body doesn't sense the nutrients like we should at the cellular level. So for example, insulin. Insulin gets into our bloodstream, comes up to the cell, knocks on the door, the cell opens the door, and it takes an insulin. Okay? As we no longer, all right, it gets worse and worse in our insulin resistance, the insulin has to knock more and more and louder on the door for the door to open. It knocks on the door to the point where it knocks so hard and loud that it no longer opens the door and the insulin is no longer absorbed. Insulin resistance, diabetes. So that's what happens with other nutrients in the body, with other things. So exercise will, we know, improve the sensitivity of the cells to the proteins. The proteins that are associated with those things that are associated with aging, like insulin, rapamycin or mTOR, AMPK, and the sirtuins, which we're going to talk a little bit about later. Those 4 things, the body will become more sensitive to that and less restrictive, so metabolism can be regulated better in its uptake. Kind of makes sense?
To me, it does. Yes,
but I think it does.
I think you described it in a very good way to everybody else, and I think just to help maybe even clean some of this up too is like I don't know if people, insulin is a hormone, and it's one of those things where hormones are released in the body as a response to something.
Correct.
Basically, what we're seeing now is like there's our hormones in our body can't be processed correctly, and if the hormones are ever out of whack, everything else is going to be kind of out of whack.
Exactly.
And insulin is a great example, because I think most people know what insulin is and what
right.
right? But yeah, it's knocking on the door, and basically the cell's saying, "No, we don't care. We don't want.
Care.
Yeah,
You know why?
yeah. I think you described it perfectly.
So our next one, the sixth one, is the mitochondrial dysfunction. So mitochondria are in our cells, and they're the powerhouse of our cells. That's where we get our energy from. And they metabolize all the nutrients that are consumed to create energy in our cells. And it produces about 90% of the energy in our cells, which we absolutely need to survive. So when we don't have as much mitochondria as we did when we were younger, or they're not as strong as they were younger, things don't work as well as they should. So think of the mitochondria as like a battery. And that battery needs to be discharged as well as charged. When does it get charged? It gets charged when we exercise. So we want to exercise to be able to maintain the mitochondria as much and as best we can, because they're the power plants of our body. That's where we get all our energy from. So we decreases in the aging process, and exercise will help recharge those batteries.
And we can recharge them through creating new, stronger batteries, or we can recharge them by creating more of those batteries, correct?
Yes.
It doesn't always have to necessarily be brand new ones. We can just make more available.
Exactly.
Cool.
And what does that?
Exercise.
There you go.
Training, a little bit of cardio work.
Yep.
You get a lot of that from strength training. So strength.
Yeah. So that's good stuff.
Absolutely.
So the next one is cellular senescing. That's when a cell dies. It's supposed to go away. It's supposed to go down the trash and flushed out. But what happens is cellular senescing no longer happens. The cells become zombie cells. And those zombie cells just start to bounce around and take up space where they shouldn't be taking up space. So a good example of this is amyloid. It's in our brains. And when those cells do not get senesced and move on, they start to cause Alzheimer's. It just starts to cloud everything up and bunch things up and take up space that should not be taken up. And so cellular senescing can be a very huge problem.
Yeah, and obviously that can lead to, it sounds like a couple of different health issues, especially if anything's related to the brain.
Yeah.
And I think I asked this before too. Do the zombie cells, they take up the space? Do they still take away nutrients or anything from other cells? Do you know if there's anything like that? Like, are they?
You know, you asked me that question before, and I don't really remember the answer to that. And I should have a piece of paper, so I have 2 notes to make to find out about that, because I'm not sure if they still take up nutrients or not.
I've got you.
I'm not positive.
I've got you here. I'll get notes to you so I can pass them over.
Yeah. Since the last time we talked, it's just been gas on the pedal. There's been no time to do anything.
Yeah, no. Well, it's just a couple of days ago, man.
Yeah.
No, I'm curious, and I have that written down here, and I don't have the answer written down, so I was just like, crap, I didn't have that answer written down.
That's a great question, though, and I need to find that out, because I know they just take up space, and whether they're still taking up nutrients, that would be a double whammy.
Space too, like especially like we just said in the brain, you just think about the issues that could cause.
Yeah.
Let's see, stem cell exhaustion. We are number 8 of the 9 hallmarks.
Yep. So what happens as we age, our stem cells eventually lose their ability to divide, like we talked about before. But what do stem cells do? They replace cells. They go out there and they can morph into different kinds of cells. They can replace tissue. They can replace red blood cells, white blood cells. And when they can no longer do this, when they lose this function, it starts a degeneration process and accelerates the aging process.
And an example of that would be, like you just said, another one is like the hair color, right?
The graying of your hair, correct.
That's an example. The stem cells not at work in the degeneration process.
Right.
All right.
They just get tired. They get tired. And maybe they were, mitochondria, the whole process, everything that we do, will be able to maintain the stem cells being able to do what they're supposed to do.
That makes sense. Makes everything else easier. Makes everything else function at higher levels. All right. Altered intercellular communication. Number 9.
Right. So just like the stem cells gets exhausted, so does the body, in the sense that it starts to increase the body's inflammation and the cells can no longer talk to each other like they're supposed to talk to each other because of this inflammation. It inhibits the immune system, and it just potentially causes a muscle wasting away, bone loss, and other things like that. So it's known as inflammaging. But basically what happens is the cells can no longer communicate like they're supposed to communicate.
Which isn't good.
As we would know, like if we were on a cell phone or if we were on this call right now and we can't communicate that we're supposed to communicate, things get messed up.
Yeah. It looks like looks like the internet connection's down here just a little bit, Chris, so we'll hang tight for just a second.
Yeah.
Now
I didn't see it on my end.
Yeah, it's coming back up. Sweet. All right, perfect. So those are the 9 hallmarks of aging, and Chris did a really good job of describing these in an analogous way so that we kind of understand how they work and how they work well or not well in our body. We have that information. Obviously, if you need to listen to that again, go ahead and turn around, listen to that, rewind. But now we want to kind of take this to a level of we have that information, so now it's better able for us to have Chris answer our questions what we had before. So we have 2 big questions. One of them is, last time we talked was branched chain amino acids show detrimental to longevity. They're detrimental to longevity. We want to know why that happens. And then is it, I'll give you that third question to answer here too. Is it the same for essential amino acids? And that's one that I'll write down for you so I can send them to you when you're done.
Okay. All right. So from those 9 things, there are 3 universal regulators of aging. Three pathways that we either want to turn on or not turn on in our lifestyles. So the first one is AMPK. It's an enzyme that plays a role in cellular energy homeostasis, like we talked about a little bit before, okay? And it's largely there to activate glucose and fatty acid uptake and the oxidation when the cellular energy is low. So what makes AMPK so important? Because this has to do with nutrition. That during levels of fasting or caloric restriction, levels of AMPK rise, and it can help regulate your metabolism better. So in a study in cellular metabolism back in 2017, they linked AMPK to longevity and lifespan because it can manipulate, it can control that cellular energy homeostasis that helps keep the cell homeostasis. So what can we do with our nutrition? We can fast. We can do some type of fasting. But fasting can be a little bit of a challenge for people because you need to learn how to get hungry. And once you fast some, you'll get used to being hungry. You'll really know what hunger is. Some people will fast all day, like all day Monday. I personally can't fast all day Monday. We've talked about it before. I fast on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I don't eat my breakfast or my snack. My whole life I've gone breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner for a long, long time now. So when I don't eat breakfast or I don't eat my snack in the morning, I get hungry. And what that does is that activates AMPK and it sort of turns on those longevity genes so that I can increase my chances for longevity and lifespan. So you might want to think about doing a little bit of fasting and make sure, naturally we fast anyway, just about 12 hours every day from, dinner to breakfast. But you got to make sure that I believe you need to get hungry. You need to have a little bit of a caloric restriction. So if you do fast, don't make up that calories that you didn't eat in the next 6 hours. Like don't eat more because that's defeating the purpose. But you don't want to do it in a pattern that your body will get used to it. I believe that you would not want to fast every morning and not have breakfast and snack because I believe my body would get used to that then. But if I continue Monday, Wednesday, Friday eating my snack and my breakfast, Tuesday and Thursday comes along, my body says, where are these calories? And it starts to fast and I get hungry. So that's one of the nutrition things that we kind of talked about a little bit last time.
Yeah.
The second thing, and I will talk specifically about BCAAs and aminos. So a second of the things is mTOR, the mTOR pathway. In this pathway, we don't want to turn this pathway on because it accelerates the aging process. So it responds well to amino acids and meats, specifically red meats, okay? And when we eat those red meats, it activates mTOR and it will accelerate the aging process. So that's one reason why we hear all the time, maybe a vegan diet is better than, having some type of animal proteins, because we don't want to turn on mTOR. And there have been some studies that show when we eat red meat in particular and it digests, it produces a byproduct in our guts. And it's called a molecule called TMAO. And this molecule has been linked to heart disease, Alzheimer's, and strokes. So again, we don't want to turn that thing on, because if we do, we're accelerating the aging process. Does that mean that you should never eat red meat again? I'm going to have a burger sometimes, okay? But I'm not going to have it all the time. So that's why we would want to stay away from BCAAs and amino acids in particular.
Sure. So a lot of that sounds like it's from the nitric oxide too in meats, and the amino acids can produce the nitrates in the body that basically in the gut can accelerate those type of things. And basically we talked a little bit about this too, and this is where we got to get Suzanne on this on a call together. Yeah. Get done. We'll figure it out. But if people don't understand the importance of their microbiome in the gut and their gut floral health and everything that the gut can do to help us be better humans, the gut only sends signal one way, and it's to the brain. And if that's saying that stuff's going badly, if that's saying that this isn't going well, if the food's not good, if we have something going on down here, the brain is then going to release whatever it is into the body to try to correct that, which is somewhat harmful to us at times and could be in health benefits at times, right? But if there's a consistent measure of that, it sounds like it's something that can be more detrimental, obviously, to longevity, but also like other health issues like you're talking about now here too.
Yeah, and so when we think about, what BCAAs does, it's asking the body produce more muscle, right? It's asking the body to grow faster than it would normally grow. So what we see is it's a good thing when we're younger, right? Maybe we want to gain some intensity in our muscles. But if you take a look at animals like a mouse grows very fast, it reproduces very fast, and it dies young. Mm-hmm. But when you take a look at a whale reproduces very slowly, it grows slowly, and it lives for a heck of a long time because it's not accelerating those processes. So we don't want to accelerate the processes. We want it to go slow. And that will help with our longevity. So.
Absolutely. And I know the one, are you still there, Chris? I got
I'm right here. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
I'm good.
I know the one research that I did read on it was that they gave rats 3 times the amount of the normal BCAA amount of like an average. I think they must have somehow extrapolated what the average amount of protein was in a daily intake, and they gave them 2 times the amount of that, and that basically killed the rats off. I can't remember what, I'd have to look it back up again, but it was significantly faster.
Significantly faster, right?
Yeah, but they were also doing 3 times the amount of the BCAAs and through that. And there's been a lot of good stuff coming out. Like I think Dave Osprey's been talking about this, and Ben Green's been talking about this a little bit too, in terms of the essential amino acids. And that's where my brain goes like, is that our future? Is that the new thing? Does it have the same effect though? If it has the same effect, obviously we want to be careful of the intake of it and going through that. And red meats, it looks like it sounds like it's kind of everything, because there's citrulline, I think is what the word I'm looking for, and celluline are the 2 words I'm looking for in red meats that cause that stuff, the TMAO in the gut.
Right.
And that's in all red meats, grass-fed, grass-fed. It doesn't matter what type of steak it is. It doesn't matter if it's this process that we can get out there and whatnot too. It seems like it's in everything.
So there's a third regulator of aging, okay, which is the sirtuin pathway. And when we take a look at sirtuins, and this has a little bit more to do about exercise and nutrition more than just the BCAAs, but when we take a look at sirtuins, every living being, every organism has sirtuins in them to protect the body. And think of sirtuins like you have the White House, and when something bad happens, it sends out the Army, or it sends out the Navy, the Marines, whatever it is, to try to take care of that problem. And that's basically what the body does with sirtuins and the sirtuin pathways. So it helps with preventing disease. And you'll notice in plants, very in vegetables, very vibrant, very colorful vegetables, that means that their sirtuin pathways were turned on at some point in time, maybe because maybe a lack of water or an increase in heat or cold, and it tried to protect itself, and by protecting itself, it actually got redder or greener, whatever the vibrant color is. So we can see that that happens in our foods as well as what happens in our bodies. Yeah. So there's a couple of ways that we can turn on the sirtuin pathway for the longevity sirtuin pathway. In that way, one of the ways is with resveratrol. And resveratrol has been known for a long time as that antioxidant that's in grapes and in wine. But the reality is that resveratrol is a very weak antioxidant, and we would have to drink a barrel full of resveratrol to get the benefits of it on a daily basis. Some people might want to do that, not myself personally. But so when they put resveratrol into a mouse, okay, a fat mouse, it became as healthy as a thin mouse. When they put it into the mice lived longer. When they put the resveratrol into the mice every other day, they were even healthier. So it's almost like the fasting type thing when that happens. So that was one thing that we see that will turn on that sirtuin pathway. And there's 7 pathways in the body. The other one is when we intake NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide. And basically what M and N does, or NR, it will be absorbed into the cell and produce more NAD, nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide. And what is the importance of NAD? Well, NAD regulates gene expression and helps boost the sirtuin pathway. And NAD is what helps keep the mitochondria healthy. And we need NAD. So without NAD, we would die. Because NAD kind of helps, well, not it kind of does, but does help with the process of making ATP. And ATP is what we use for the energy in our cells. So this whole NNM or NN thing really wants to is try to increase the amount of NAD in our body. Because at age 50, we have half the NAD we had when we were 20.
Okay, so
big drop off. Big drop off. So unhealthy mitochondria means increase in disease, which means increase in aging. So we want to try to have as much NAD in our body as possible.
And NAD can be produced naturally as long as everything else is kind of working. But when as we age, that does turn off a little bit. That's what you're saying through that?
Exactly. So as we age, we don't have quite as much NAD. So then that's why we don't have quite as much, the mitochondria not working as well as they were before. So in Dr. Sinclair's mind, he takes resveratrol and he takes NMN to try to boost his mitochondria, or his NAD process to boost his mitochondria. Those are some supplements that he takes.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Now, resveratrol is not that expensive, but NR and NMN are pretty expensive. So
yeah,
I think they're expensive.
$50 here. Resveratrol is about $20-$25. NAD about $50 if you want a good one. I see one over here for $105 if you want to buy it.
Right. That's a monthly expense.
Yeah.
Right. So
sure.
You can get some NR in other ways, and NR turns into NAD. So we can get it through dairy, through milk, not organic milk, just regular old milk is a good source of NR. Fish, your beer lights up your ears. Brown mushrooms, turkey, chicken, yeast, green vegetables. Vegetables are foods that are rich in vitamin B complex, which is like spinach, sweet potatoes, avocados. I mean, grapes, blueberries, chocolate, dark chocolate. You need all the things that we always teach people to eat, right? Yeah. We teach people to eat lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, get your lean proteins in there. And believe it or not, with that, the right nutrients, exercise, you're going to boost your mitochondria. And both aerobic and resistance training will boost your mitochondria, which will increase the enzyme that makes NAD, NAP, MPT, But bottom line is we need to get as much NAD or mitochondria going as we possibly can.
Absolutely. So
those are power cells in our body. So you don't have to go out and spend $50 or $100 a month. Just eat the right foods.
the right foods. Drink your beer. Drink your beer. It's
drink a little beer, would you?
Yeah. Was the resveratrol stuff that you talked about, like the grapes and the wine? Was that where I think it was? I know it was right when I first started personal training, which was 8 years ago. It was shortly after that, like they came out with the media came out with the thing where drinking a glass of wine is equivalent to like an hour of cardio each day. Was it from the resveratrol? You know, if that's what that whole study was about?
I don't remember that because that's the media taking something that's just crazy.
Oh, it for sure was. And I remember I had
it's just nuts.
They posted it somewhere, and every client was the caption was 1 glass of wine is the equivalent of 1 hour cardio a day, and it was for heart health. It was something for heart health. I can't remember what it was. They're like, "See, Jordan, this is gonna."
I'm breaking up again.
Oh, you're back there. Are you back?
Yeah. I lost you for a second.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's like I said. You need to basically drink a barrel of wine a day to get the benefits of resveratrol.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. Well, I know you talked earlier about if you had 2 hours a week, like if you only have 2 hours a week, like make sure it counts as strength training. Is there anything else that, like, is that the golden ticket right now? Like, make sure if you are going to exercise at all, make sure strength training is a part of it. And is there anything that you wish you would have done sooner in your life, or that you would change differently earlier on to really dive into this?
I've exercised pretty much my whole life. Certainly when I was in my 20s, I probably drank too much beer and didn't have the best of diets like the rest of us. But my nutrition has come along, and it's gotten better in probably the past 20 years as well. But the one thing that I wish I had known more about a little bit earlier is the fasting component to it. Because we've always taught and believe the philosophy of at least breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then for fat loss, we're looking to do 5 or 6 meals a day. And always very successful, but for longevity, it might not be the best thing. So we always have to take a look at what the goal is in life and what we're trying to accomplish. So I wish that I had known earlier about the longevity, about the effects of longevity, positive effects for longevity from fasting. That's probably the one thing in my own personal life that I wish I had known a little bit earlier. That and probably sleep. In our business, it's mornings and nights. And when I opened over 20 years ago, people weren't doing this for a living in small towns in central Connecticut. They might do a little bit in the big cities. So I had to bust my butt for a long time, 15 hours a day. And there weren't people that were teaching us how to do it. I mean, you guys are so lucky now. When you open a business, there's systems out there, and you can learn from people that have made mistakes. I'm that person that made all those mistakes and made them for a long time. So I burned the candle at both ends for a long time. So, we always knew sleep was good for you. You just wasn't getting it. Right. Whereas I didn't know that fasting was as good for me as I think it is now.
Right. Yeah, there's power to both of those things. I've been a big major. I read the book. I know we talked about it, Why We Sleep. And that book now, it's got me so scared to even miss out on like 15, 20 minutes of my normal.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I start freaking out over it. So it's incredible stuff. It's incredible stuff. It's a balancing act, but it's making sure that if you are focusing on 1 or 2 or 3 things, it's making sure that there's a few things out there that you really do well. And I think one of them is making sure that the lifestyle's there, making sure that there's exercise into it, making sure you're eating the right way, and then getting that the fasting in there as part of that, and then the sleep. There's more to it than that. That's obviously why we coach people and how we coach people, but big parts. Mm-hmm. Well, cool. I think we'll have to do another episode in the future, and we'll see if we can get Suzanne on. Suzanne's in our coaching group, everybody. She's down at Forward Fitness in St. Louis, Missouri. And she's a registered dietitian. She's got some good knowledge and some good continuing certification in gut health, and we could probably pick her brain and do a joint episode of her in the near future. So we'll make sure we get that going.
That'd be great. And then what you do is, if you send me those questions, both of us, let's look it up so we get those answers. I certainly want to know the answers. Those are great questions.
Absolutely. I will send them to you. I've got 3 of them to send your way. I'll send them to you as soon as we're done. So once again, everybody, this is Chris Borda. He is the longevity expert. We're going to be in touch with him in the near future. We actually get to see him in about a month at our mastermind. But he's the owner of Y.E.S Fitness over in Connecticut. He is also the Results Fitness University Business Owner of the Year. And he is doing his own podcast, so make sure you follow them on Facebook, Y.E.S Fitness on Facebook. He's also on Instagram. You can catch him on there, but he's putting up good stuff, and he's teaching everything. He's the expert guy, so make sure we're following him from the fitness side of things. But Chris, Dan, thanks for joining us for episode number 72.
Thank you.
It's always awesome, and hopefully one of these times we'll figure out how do we only get on a meeting for 1 hour and get this working, so I don't have to take your time up. But it's always.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I appreciate you having me on.
Cool, man. Well, as always, everybody, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comments box below. Is there more stuff that you'd like to hear from Chris? Let me know so I can let him know and we can do this again. But Chris, thanks again for joining us, and everybody else, thanks again for watching.
Thank you.